Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're looking at the brand new Tactile Knife Co Mariner 2. This is a Bob Terzuola design. Original version was designed in 1988. And now 36 years later, Tactile has brought it back and I couldn't be happier. If y'all didn't hear my story on this knife, whenever I first kind of started getting into the hobby, go check out my first impressions of this one. I got to handle one of those customs that a buddy of mine had, and whenever I saw this knife, I got so excited. Not to mention, go watch the Tactile Knife Co's story on the flea market find about this knife. I gotta say, you know, if you look at the original and now the more updated version, I think Tactile did a good job of keeping it true to the classic form. It's a medium-sized EDC knife and it's coming in at 7.16 inches long. It has a 2.985-inch sheep's foot blade of CPM MagnaCut steel, and they harden it from 63 to 64 HRC, so it should perform very, very well. It's going to have excellent corrosion resistance, and to top it off, it's going to be a tough steel as well. You don't have jimping per se, but you do have a thumb disc that is a little bit raised, so you can use that as traction. It does work fairly well for that. You have nice and thin blade stock coming in at 0.10 inches, and this is going to be a pretty versatile sheep's foot blade. And the reason I say that is because if you look right about here, the belly actually kicks up right there, just ever so slightly, so that should help you cut on a flat cutting surface. We'll test that out in just a second. You got a nice stone wash finish that should hide wear very, very well. Your sharpening choil is pretty good. I wouldn't have minded it being a little bit bigger, but you're gonna have, looking at the side of it, you should have to about right here where the tip of that thing is before it'll start to widen at the heel. So a few sharpenings as long as you keep the factory bevel. Before I go any further, real quick, I need to address something. It won't take but a second. Last night I got an email from a subscriber, irate, questioning my character as an honest reviewer because he put a comment on my Blade Binge video and he thinks I removed it. My mental health suffers very bad. I do not have time to erase anybody's comments. If your comment gets erased, it's YouTube. They censor your comments. If you curse, if you say anything they don't like, they remove it. So if you ever see it, just know it's not me. I got people making fun of my hands all the time, call me Freddy Krueger, call me crispy hands, and they're still sitting up. So why would I erase anybody's comment? He obviously just doesn't know me, but that's just something I wanted to share with everybody. YouTube loves to take down comments, loves to censor comments. Jared Neves and I talked about it a while back too, and unfortunately he said he unsubscribed. I'm trying to build a family here. We got some awesome people, and I hate to see anybody go, but don't question my character. The only reason I would ever even think to take down a comment is if you talk about my family. You can talk about me all you want, but if you bring my family into it, that's where it stops. But I was already dealing with a lot of pain, a lot of stress last night, and that just kind of really punched me in the gut. Sorry about that. Let's get back to the video. It's going to really excel though at the utility style cuts, your drag cuts, using that tip. If you need to do something very intricate, you should be able to easily do that with this one. This one has a flat grind and it comes down nice and thin to around 13 thousandths behind the edge. However, it does have a 26 degrees per side edge bevel. Let's see what it can do. I'll be honest, with the edge bevel thickness that this one comes with at 26 degrees per side, I was a little worried. However, it's nice and thin behind the edge, and as long as the edge is sharp and you have that thinner blade stock, the thinner behind the edge, the thinner geometry, it should still perform really well. I'm sorry. But the one awesome thing about it is after this, after I finish this testing, I can reprofile it myself, put whatever type of edge I want. I'll probably put it to about 17, 18 degrees. And this thing is going to be an outstanding slicer. Now we're testing the ergos, and I have to admit, this thing is very comfortable. There's no crazy hot spots anywhere. It's nice and rounded. Every sharp corner is knocked down. I had a very nice and solid grip, and being that you have a lot of straight edge, I'm bearing down into this wood, nice and comfortable. The pocket clip stayed out of the way of my palm. Yeah, Very, very comfortable. I enjoyed testing this one this way. And this is where you can kind of feel that more obtuse edge, because this is some very abrasion resistant material. It's a very abrasion resistant material. So the thicker the bevel, it doesn't split it as cleanly or as easily. But once again, I'm going to change that, and it's still performing nice. I do like, and I did not even notice it in the pictures, but I do like that little kick up that the blade has toward the tip right at the end of the edge. It's because of that I'm able to do these cuts on a flat cutting surface rather easily. If it wouldn't be like that, I would have definitely raised this one up on the block, because it just wouldn't have been enjoyable at all to do. But yeah, very, very good job. I figured it would do good. I've tested 4 knives, I think, now from Tactile that have been in Magna Cut at 63, 64. They all hold an excellent edge. They all perform 3 times better once I reprofile it, and they hold an edge even longer. I have noticed with the Tactiles, I would say by the 3rd sharpening is when you get max performance out of your knife. So that's after the third complete edge that you put on here. Now, if you are reprofiling it, say 3 degrees, then it's basically like sharpening it 3 times. So then it would just be 1 time. So that's why I usually see that full jump after I finish sharpening mine, because I drop it about 8 degrees. But yeah, perfectly okay the way it is. I just prefer an even slicier edge, and I love the performance to just be great. This is one place that's definitely going to excel, is these utility cuts. It's nice. It's easy to get the tip onto things. And once again, that belly plays an excellent role in doing these type of things right here, because I don't have to worry about that tip getting buried into my cutting board, possibly snapping. So I give this one an A+ for performance. I can't wait to see how it does after I reprofile this edge. So outstanding job. Now let's look at the deployment and action of this knife. So I'm not usually a big fan of thumb disc. However, this one is rather comfortable. It doesn't bother me at all. It's got a very well-tuned detent. It comes rocketing out. This thing is nice and silky smooth. If you want to reverse flick it, you can put your thumb underneath that thumb disc and you get a nice reverse flick as well. Nice slow roll. However I want to open it, it's pretty darn easy, nice and comfortable. This particular thumb disc that it comes with is titanium, but they offer a Damascus one, a Mokatai one, a superconductor one, crystallized titanium, and zirconium. I just ordered me a Damascus one just to give it a little pop of color, even though I do like the monochrome look. This knife is completely made in the US at the Tactile factory. If they do outsource anything, it's all outsourced from the US. It's riding on ceramic bearings, and it's got nice and smooth action. Take a look at the handle area. So you have flat titanium scales that have, I guess that's like a PVD coating on it. It's got like a grayish tint. Your pivot, along with all your body screws, all Torx T8, and they're very, very crisp hardware. Nice tight fitment in there. Stop pin's nice and beefy there. You have I call it about a 3/4 length titanium backspacer that is flush, and they got beveling on both sides. It looks nice and clean. You have a hidden lanyard post in the back right here. I'm glad they didn't put any holes in the actual frame besides what you have to have. Flip it over, you have a blind screwed mill-tie pocket clip with the Terzuola maker's mark right there. I've always loved his maker's mark. They have very fine micro milling going down the clip. It's kind of hard to see unless you're really looking up close. But I do love this texture they have in the back. I think it just gives it a little bit extra flair, and I think it looks really nice. It's got some pretty tight tension there, but you want that because this is smooth titanium, and if you didn't have this tension, it would probably come out of the pocket rather easily, but it goes in and out of the pocket nicely, and for being a milled tie pocket clip, it sits fairly deep in the pocket, as you can see there. Got the perfect amount of ramp, I find, did not cause me any issues while using the knife, Goes in and out of the pocket very, very nicely, and that's all you have sticking out of the pocket. It hugs this side perfectly, so if you put a phone in there or something, you're not going to have a flipper that's going to come in contact with it or anything. You should be A-okay. And then if you do have a lanyard, it is going to sit above the pocket, so if you want to grab it to pull out the knife, you can, or where that little texture is, I'm sure that's probably why they did that. You got something to hold on to besides the pocket clip so you don't put tension there, and you can easily get it out of the pocket. It is only tip up right hand carry. I don't know if they're going to make a lefty version or not, or if they do. So because you have these nice thick slabs of tie and this tie backspacer, that is going to cause a little bit extra weight. They did try to reduce the weight as much as they possibly could. You can see all the heavy skeletonization on the show side. Sorry, mine's a little dirty. And the locking liner is just a partial liner. It is not the whole entire thing. And they even put a little bit of weight relieving right here as well, where that pocket clip sits. And I believe it's keeping it at a very manageable weight, coming in at 3.6 ounces. That, in my opinion, is perfect. The lockup on my knife, I'd say, is around 30 to maybe 40%, but 100% engaged underneath the tang. The access to the lock bar is pretty good. You have this coming down a little bit lower. You do have some texture there. I have no problems moving that over at all. It's not a ton of tension on that lock, so I'm finding it to be nice and comfortable, and I can also use that portion of my thumb as well. The lockup on my knife is rock solid. Yeah, no movement up or down, left or right, nice and tight lockup. Love seeing that. We'll do some light spine whacking, but definitely not a knife I would recommend doing that to. My wife hates when I do this. So yeah, nice and tight. That did not affect anything whatsoever. Still got great action. Now for some quick size comparisons, the Ontario Rat 1's a good bit bigger. It's almost identical in length to the Rat 2. Next up, it's dwarfed by the Spyderco PM2, but it has probably more cutting edge than the PM2, and it's just a hair shorter than the Power 3. Next up, it's a little bit shorter than the Hogue Deca, and it's a little bit longer than the Tactile Rockwall. And lastly, it's pretty much identical in length to my Hinder XM18 3-inch Warning, and it's a hair longer than the Chris Reeve Sebenza 31. And what are my nitpicks and complaints? First, this is a very minor thing. I've never had an issue with it, but these screws right here are coming through this backspacer, and it looks like they're tapped into this side of the titanium, which, you know, the only issues with that is if you ever strip one of these out, you would have to either retap it yourself or send it back to get retapped. And you definitely need to be careful because titanium is a pretty soft material. All that said, I've taken apart plenty of knives that are done like this. I've never had an issue because I'm careful. You know, whenever you know that's the case, just be careful. Make sure you're hitting it at a nice 90-degree angle from the scale and take your time. Next thing, I really wish they would start to lower their edge angles. This one is coming in at 26 degrees per side. That is pretty darn obtuse. But the one nice thing about this is it's still nice and thin. You know, it's like around 13 thousandths behind the edge. So the edge bevel is not super wide as it is. So I could drop that to probably 18 degrees per side, which I'll probably do. And it won't be a super wide bevel. But it'd be nice if it came from factory already at like at least 20 degrees. That'd be great. MagnaCut can definitely handle it. Maybe a little bit bigger of a sharpening choil. Once I reprofile that, it may take me to about right there. I don't know. And you do need to be careful if you do decide to widen that sharpening choil because of where the stop pin is. If you ever needed to widen that, you just need to put a line right there so you don't take off any material that would affect it in the closed position. Or possibly send it back to them. I don't know. And lastly, the price. You know, it's a premium knife made here in the US with premium materials. It's got an absolute legend that they've collaborated with in Bob Terzuola. He's coming at $429. So yes, that is steep. Do I think it's worth it? Personally, I do. Not only do I enjoy using it, I enjoy carrying it. It looks a little unique, and it's definitely a conversation starter. My father-in-law was asking me all about it whenever I pulled it out to cut something at his house, and I've really enjoyed carrying it. And not to mention, like I said, this is pretty nostalgic for me, being that I got to handle the very few 50 that Bob Terzuola custom made that a friend of mine had bought on the secondary market whenever I was pretty young. It wasn't in 1988. I can't remember exactly how old I was. All I remember is not knowing anything really about any of the knife makers. And my buddy had this knife and I was like, cool, I want to buy one. And he told me how much he paid for it. And I was like, cool, I'll never be able to buy one. It was definitely nothing I could afford. I think I was in high school at that time. You know, definitely very well-made knife. There's no doubt about it. It performed very, very nicely. And I can only imagine how awesome it's going to perform once I lay that edge bevel back. It's nice and comfortable. During all the cutting, I had no issues with anything poking or prodding me. They do a fantastic job of knocking off any sharp edges. You know, they round over everything. There's a lot of attention to detail. And I definitely think they did a fantastic job with following those classic lines from that 1988 Terzuola original Mariner. So if nothing I talked about is a deal breaker for you, I can highly recommend the knife. Like I said, love it. No doubt about it. Now, of course, they sent this to me, so, you know, take that for what it is. But I always give y'all my honest opinions on the knife. Y'all should know that by now. And I like it a whole lot. But when it comes to these prices, that's a personal decision because, you know, there is a point to where your materials and even quality, all that stuff, it stops. So you're not getting anything extra. But, you know, the fact that it's made in the U.S., nice tight tolerances, the action is beautiful. It's a good performer with a excellent steel, heat treated properly to the HRC that it should be anyway. So thanks for watching, everyone. That's going to wrap it up for today. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those down below and I'll do my best to get back with you. I hope every one of y'all is having a fantastic, fantastic day. If you enjoyed this review, think about hitting the like button so I know you're enjoying the content and I continue to bring it to y'all. And if you enjoy knife and gear content and you're not already, definitely consider subscribing. We'd love to have you here. That's all for today. And remember, keep those blades sharp. Smile more. Peace!